Across the deserts of Egypt, the jungles of Mesoamerica, and the high plains of the Andes, silent stones guard a secret that seems to defy time. Our ancestors, armed only with tools of bronze and stone, constructed monuments that challenge the limits of modern engineering. They lifted and fitted multi-ton granite blocks with laser-like precision, aligned temples with celestial perfection, and built cities that have endured for thousands of years. How did they achieve such mastery? Were they heirs to a lost global civilization? Did they possess a forgotten understanding of physics, acoustics, and mathematics? Or is the truth something far stranger, something hidden just beyond the reach of conventional history? Whatever the answer, one thing seems clear. They knew something we have forgotten. When archaeologists first opened certain Egyptian sarcophagi, they were stunned. Instead of the familiar linen wrappings and gilded masks, some mummies appeared encased in a dark, glistening red shell. Their skin and bandages had fused together, forming a hardened layer that gleamed like polished amber, or blood turned to stone. The substance was heavy, resinous, and entirely unique. At first, experts assumed it was a simple variation of the embalming process, perhaps a decorative choice. But when scientists began to analyze the material, they uncovered something extraordinary. The red coating was not paint nor a natural stain. It was a complex engineered compound, a fusion of organic and mineral ingredients combined with deliberate precision. Modern chemistry, even with all its tools, still struggles to reproduce it exactly. Even more baffling was its rarity. Only a handful of mummies bore this red armor. Why only them? What secret knowledge had been reserved for so few? The story of the red resin mummies begins during Egypt's New Kingdom, roughly 3,300 years ago, when the art of embalming had reached its highest refinement. Normally, the dead were anointed with oils, wrapped in linen, and lightly brushed with yellow or brown resin. But in certain high-status burials, such as the famed Red Lady of Akhmim and several tombs near Thebes, the bodies were completely sealed beneath a thick crimson layer, as if anointed by flame itself. When researchers from the British Museum and the University of Manchester examined these mummies under spectrometers and scanning electron microscopes, their findings astonished the scientific world. The coating was not uniform. It was a layered composite, carefully blended from multiple exotic materials to form a durable, stone-like armor against time. Its typical ingredients included conifer resin from pine or cedar trees, likely imported from the Levant. Hundreds of miles away, bitumen or natural asphalt, a black, hydrocarbon-rich substance used for sealing and preservation. Beeswax, acting as both binder and stabilizer. Plant oils, possibly from castor or moringa seeds, and most intriguingly, iron oxides, especially hematite and red ochre, the compounds responsible for its deep, blood-like color. When chemists tried to recreate the substance, they ran into a mystery. The formula wasn't consistent. Each mummy's coating had subtle variations, different ratios of metals, resins, and organic compounds. Some even contained trace elements like copper or manganese that didn't match any known local materials. It was as if every batch had been prepared by hand, following secret recipes known only to the embalmers of the temple, a kind of sacred chemistry, part science, part ritual. In ancient Egypt, chemistry was not merely practical, it was spiritual. The word the embalmers used for their art, chemia, is the root of our modern term alchemy. To embalm a body was not simply to prevent decay, it was to transmute mortal flesh into eternity. The red resin in this light was not a preservative, but a philosophical material, a fusion of earth, fire, and blood, a formula designed to unite the human and the divine. When applied hot, it seeped into every linen layer, sealing the body completely. As it cooled, it hardened into a crimson shell, forming a perfect barrier against moisture and bacteria. Yet its symbolism may have mattered even more than its chemistry. Iron oxides like hematite were sacred. They were the same pigments used to paint the amulets of Isis and Ra, gods of rebirth and light. In Egyptian belief, red was the color of both life and danger, of the desert and the sun, of blood and divine fire. To coat the dead in red was to return them to the element of creation, to give their flesh the hue of the sun's eternal flame and the blood of the gods themselves. In the flicker of torchlight, these red mummies must have gleamed like beings caught between worlds, humans transfigured into symbols of immortality. Whether the formula came from nature, from foreign lands, or from a deeper well of forgotten knowledge, it stands as one of ancient Egypt's most haunting enigmas, a mystery sealed in crimson stone, whispering that the ancients understood transformation, not just of matter, but of the soul itself. In Egyptian belief, the color red symbolized both life and divine power, the energy of the sun and the blood that sustained creation. By coating certain bodies in a crimson resin, embalmers may have been granting them the essence of life itself, ensuring rebirth in the radiant afterworld of Osiris. Yet this interpretation hides a paradox. Not all elite mummies received the treatment. Some kings and queens were embalmed using traditional resins without any trace of red. Why then were only select individuals, often priests, nobles, or unnamed figures, anointed in crimson? Scholars have proposed many answers. Some suggest it was reserved for members of the solar cults, those bound to the rituals of Ra and the resurrection cycle of the sun. Others believe the formula was used for individuals who died under mysterious or impure circumstances, the resin acting as a kind of spiritual fire, purifying and sanctifying the flesh for eternity. Modern forensics has revealed just how advanced this ancient chemistry truly was. Using gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS, and Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, FTIR, teams from the Manchester Museum, the Cairo Museum, and the Museo Egizio of Turin have uncovered a recipe far beyond anything expected. From Bronze Age science, the red coating was not a single material but a complex composite, a deliberate fusion of organic and mineral elements. Some samples contained anthracene derivatives, aromatic hydrocarbons that shouldn't exist in nature without refined heat processing. Others contained resin acids that normally degrade when exposed to high temperatures. Yet here they were, preserved perfectly for over 3,000 years. The conclusion was staggering. Whoever prepared this mixture understood thermal chemistry at a level rivaling modern polymer science. They knew exactly how to heat and blend pine resin, bitumen, and wax to create a self-sealing, antimicrobial coating capable of lasting millennia. Even today, materials scientists marvel at its resilience, glossy, solid, and nearly impervious to humidity. Unlike other embalming substances that flake away, the red resin remains a smooth, intact shell, almost synthetic in its endurance. Where this knowledge came from remains a mystery. Some historians point to trade with the Near East, where Egyptian embalmers might have obtained exotic ingredients such as myrrh and Dead Sea bitumen. Others believe the secret recipes were closely guarded within temple libraries, ritual codes passed orally among the high priests of Anubis and lost with time. Among all examples, none is more haunting than the Red Lady of Akhmim. Discovered in the 19th century, her body was completely covered in a shimmering scarlet layer that gleamed under torchlight like molten stone. Chemical analysis identified cedar oil, beeswax, bitumen, and iron oxide combined with a resin from an unknown botanical source. The red hue was so intense that early archaeologists mistook it for cinnabar, mercury sulfide, though later tests disproved that theory. Who was she? Some believe the Red Lady was a priestess of Ra, her body transformed into the color of the sun to symbolize her eternal rebirth. Others think she may have died far from home, her embalming formula engineered to preserve her body during a long journey back to Egypt. Yet neither theory explains the remarkable precision and craftsmanship of her coating, an artistry that feels almost technological in its execution. To the Egyptians, death was not an ending, but a challenge, a puzzle to be solved through ritual and science. The red resin may have been their boldest answer. A fusion of elements, tree sap reaching toward the heavens, beeswax symbolizing renewal, and minerals drawn from the blood of the earth. Together, they created a body both human and eternal, flesh transformed into matter that could not decay. Despite decades of research, the formula and purpose of the red resin remain unsolved. Each mummy coated in it tells a slightly different story, chemically unique, spiritually charged, scientifically perplexing. Was it armor against time or a ritual of divine metamorphosis? A preservation technique or a passage to godhood? Until the lost texts of the ancient embalmers are found, the mystery will endure. In the red silence of the tomb, those ancient artisans achieved what modern science still dreams of: immortality through chemistry. And as the centuries pass, the red mummies of Egypt still glisten softly in the dark, their color unfaded, their secret intact. Carved more than 2,500 years ago, these ancient burial chambers stand as silent witnesses to a civilization both sophisticated and mysterious. Yet among the countless Etruscan tombs uncovered in central Italy, a few contain a phenomenon so uncanny that it continues to puzzle archaeologists and acoustic engineers alike: the whispering galleries. If you stood alone inside one of these tombs and heard a soft voice answering from the dark, would you believe it to be your echo, or the voice of the past, still trying to be heard? At first glance, these chambers appear ordinary. Narrow corridors hewn from volcanic stone, domed ceilings, and walls painted with faded frescoes of banquets, dances, and funerary rites. But those who enter describe an experience both eerie and wondrous. A whisper from one end of the tomb travels effortlessly to the other. The voice doesn't echo in the usual way. It glides, curving through the air, clinging to the stone, as if the tomb itself were alive, carrying sound through its hollow veins. This is no accident of geology. The Etruscans carved their tombs from tufa, a soft, porous volcanic rock abundant in the region. To the eye, tufa seems coarse and fragile, but under the surface it is riddled with microscopic air pockets, granting it a rare property. It can absorb and reflect sound simultaneously. When shaped into curved chambers, it forms a natural acoustic field that amplifies the faintest vibration. A breath, a whisper, even the rustle of clothing can bloom into a ghostly murmur that travels through the dark. What astonishes modern researchers is that the Etruscans lived long before the science of acoustics existed. The mathematical principles of resonance and reflection would not be formally described for another 2,000 years. Yet the design of these tombs, their sloping corridors, domed ceilings, and subtly concave walls, reveals an intuitive grasp of how sound behaves in space. Was this knowledge discovered through trial and error, or did the Etruscans preserve a sacred understanding of vibration and geometry now lost to history? Digital scans and acoustic simulations have confirmed the tomb's precision. In certain chambers, sound converges at distinct focal points, like the focus of a parabolic mirror. A whisper uttered from one point can be heard clearly from another, as far as 10 to 12 meters away, while remaining inaudible elsewhere in the room. To anyone standing between those two spots, the effect would seem supernatural, a disembodied voice whispering through stone. For the Etruscans, whose religion revolved around communication with the dead, such an effect would have been deeply symbolic. Their funerary rituals sought to bridge the world of the living and the spirit realm. In that sacred darkness, the whispering of the tomb may have been interpreted not as echo, but as response, a conversation with the ancestors. Archaeological evidence supports this theory. Frescoes inside certain tombs depict musicians playing long horns, flutes, and drums, instruments tuned to low, resonant frequencies that would have interacted powerfully with the acoustics of these spaces. When played in unison, the sound waves would merge into a deep, vibrating hum that filled the chamber like a living presence. To the participants, this resonance might have felt like the breath of the divine, a sound that transcended the boundary between life and death. From a modern perspective, the precision of these designs seems impossible. The Etruscans left no written treatises on architecture or sound, yet they created chambers that behave like engineered resonators. The curvature of some ceilings aligns perfectly with the mathematical radius later used in Renaissance cathedrals, structures built to channel sound and amplify prayer. And still, the mystery persists. Not all tombs whisper. Some remain utterly silent, while others, often those belonging to nobles or high priests, resonate with uncanny vitality. Was this variation deliberate? Did the Etruscans craft certain tombs to serve as spiritual instruments, designed for ritual communication with the afterlife? Or were these sonic marvels the byproduct of an intuitive genius we can no longer comprehend? In the end, the whispering tombs of Etruria are more than archaeological curiosities. They are voices in stone, echoes of a vanished people who, through geometry, sound, and silence, sought to make the boundary between life and death resonate like a single breath. Beneath the drifting dust of the southern Iraqi desert, a scatter of ruins lies half-buried beneath the sun's merciless glare. This is Eridu, a name that echoes from the dawn of civilization. Long before Uruk and Babylon, before empires rose and gods took human form, there was Eridu, the first city ever built, more than 7,000 years ago. According to the Sumerian king list, when kingship descended from heaven, it was in Eridu. Those words mark the city not merely as the cradle of civilization, but as the very point where divine order touched the earth. Eridu was the threshold, the meeting place of man and God, land and water, reality and myth. And yet, at the height of its power, the city of the gods fell silent. Why? What could erase the first city of humankind, the birthplace of kingship itself? Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of 17 layers of occupation, stacked like pages of a forgotten book. At its heart stood the temple of Enki, god of wisdom and the freshwater abyss. Each layer of the temple was rebuilt upon the ruins of the last, rising higher and grander through the ages. Over millennia, Eridu evolved from a simple cluster of reed huts beside the marshes of the Euphrates into a monumental sanctuary of mud brick and ziggurat. It was more than a city. It was a cosmic symbol. To the Sumerians, Eridu represented creation itself, a sacred space where the sweet waters of the deep, the Abzu, emerged to give life to the world. The Temple of Enki was built directly over this spring, a literal and spiritual fountain of existence. Within its walls, priests performed rituals of purification and renewal, maintaining the balance between heaven, earth, and the underworld. But something changed. Around 2000 BCE, Eridu began to fade. The canals that once brought life to the city turned to silt. The surrounding marshes dried into salt flats. The great temple was abandoned, its altar left to crumble beneath the desert wind. There is no record of conquest, no trace of fire or war, only a quiet, deliberate departure. Why would a city so sacred simply vanish? One theory holds that climate change doomed it. Shifts in river courses and the encroaching desert slowly strangled Eridu's lifeline. Without water, the city of the water god could not survive. Others suggest a religious transformation, that as Sumerian civilization expanded northward, power shifted to new cities like Uruk and Ur, and Eridu's spiritual importance waned. The Temple of Enki, once the navel of creation, became a relic of an older faith. Yet beneath these rational explanations, the myth tells another story. The Eridu Genesis, one of the oldest surviving creation texts, speaks of a time when the gods grew displeased with humankind's pride. In it, Enki warns his chosen follower, Ziusudra, of a great flood destined to wipe the earth clean, a tale that predates Noah by centuries. When the waters receded, the gods decreed that kingship should rise anew in another place. Perhaps then, Eridu's fall was seen not as ruin, but as divine. The transition, the closing of one cosmic era and the dawn of another. Archaeologists, excavating the site, have found evidence of flooding layers and sudden abandonment, physical echoes of that ancient myth. Between the mud brick walls and the desiccated canal beds lies a silence that feels deliberate, almost ritualistic, as if the city was meant to be buried, preserved for those who would one day rediscover it. To stand amid its ruins today is to feel the weight of the world's first memory. The wind moves across the cracked clay like breath through an empty temple. The outlines of ziggurats blur against the horizon. Their stairways, once meant to bridge heaven and earth, now leading nowhere. Eridu remains both a place and a question, a city born from divine imagination and reclaimed by the sands of time. Was its disappearance the work of nature, of shifting gods, or of a forgotten catastrophe? Or did the people of Eridu, sensing their destiny fulfilled, simply walk away, leaving behind the first and greatest monument to humanity's eternal search for the divine? Whatever the truth, the city still sleeps beneath the desert, the first whisper of civilization, and perhaps the last echo of paradise. Was it a natural disaster, a loss of faith, or something beyond our understanding? Share your theories in the comments below. What do you believe truly happened to the city of the gods? Eridu, the first city in human history, was founded around 5400 BCE along the ancient banks of the Euphrates River, where vast marshlands met the edge of the desert. It was here, for the first time, that humankind built more than mere shelters. They built a true city, complete with temples, dwellings, and organized governance. At its heart stood the Abzu Temple, regarded as the earliest temple ever constructed by human hands. Dedicated to Enki, the Sumerian god of water, wisdom, and creation. To the Sumerians, Enki was no ordinary deity. He was the bringer of knowledge, the teacher who revealed to humanity how to dig canals, shape bricks, and inscribe symbols into wet clay. The very beginnings of writing itself. Archaeologists at Eridu have uncovered 18 layers of construction, one atop another, each representing a new era in the evolution of civilization. From modest reed huts to monumental temples of baked brick, Eridu grew over thousands of years, transforming from a settlement into a laboratory of civilization, a place where humanity learned how to build, believe, and belong. The name Abzu means house of the deep waters, referring to the Abzu, the primordial underground ocean believed to flow beneath the world, the sacred domain of Enki. In Sumerian cosmology, the Abzu was the source of all life, and Eridu was its gateway, a point of communion between mortals and the divine. The priests of Eridu were not only worshippers, they were the first astronomers, hydrologists, and scribes, the earliest scientists of human history. In their world, there was no separation between religion, science, and magic. Each was simply another way of reading the mind of the gods. Ancient legend tells of Ziusudra, the last king of Eridu before the Great Flood, the man who, warned by Enki, built a vessel to survive the deluge sent to cleanse the world. Centuries later, his story would reappear in another text, as Noah, the survivor of the biblical flood. Beneath 2 meters of sediment, archaeologists have indeed discovered a thick layer of flood-deposited clay, suggesting that Eridu truly faced a catastrophic deluge. At its height, Eridu was not merely a city, it was the spiritual and political heart of Mesopotamia. Canals were dug to harness the Euphrates, sustaining fertile fields that fed the early world. Its temples expanded into great ziggurats, adorned with baked bricks over 7,000 years old, each brick bearing intricate geometric patterns that reveal a level of craftsmanship far ahead of its time. Modern engineers still marvel. How could a Bronze Age people achieve such precision and durability with primitive tools? To some scholars, Eridu represents the first blueprint of urban society, a model that all later cities, from Ur to Babylon, would follow. Yet others see something even deeper, a mystery that lies between myth and history. In Sumerian legend, the builders of Eridu were not entirely human. They were the Anunnaki, those who came down from the sky. These celestial beings, according to ancient texts, descended to teach humanity agriculture, construction, and writing, ushering in the first golden age of civilization. And then, around 2000 BCE, everything stopped. The sacred city, the cradle of human order, was suddenly abandoned. There were no signs of war, no destruction, no epidemic, only silence. Temples were left unfinished, altars untouched, streets empty. Archaeologists call this moment the Great Silence of Eridu, the sudden end of a civilization that had endured for over 3 millennia. Why did Eridu die? Some point to environmental collapse, the shifting course of the Euphrates, the creeping advance of the desert, or the salinization of the soil that made crops fail. Others suggest religious transformation, that as the cult of Enki declined, faith migrated to new centers like Uruk and Nippur, leaving Eridu a hollow relic of the past. But the Sumerian texts tell another story, one not of nature, but of the gods themselves. The gods left Eridu and ascended to the heavens, they wrote. For the Sumerians, this was no metaphor. It was the end of a covenant, a moment when divine presence withdrew from the world, and humanity stood alone for the first time. Perhaps Eridu's fall was not a disaster at all, but a transformation, the breaking of humanity's dependence on divine rule, the dawn of the age of human reason. When the gods departed, humankind became the master of its own fate. The age of kingship from heaven gave way to an age of men, and so Eridu, the first city of the gods, faded into the dust, not destroyed, but fulfilled. Its temples still lie buried beneath the desert, its canals long dry, yet its legacy endures. For in its ruins lives the beginning of everything, the first dream of civilization, and perhaps the first lesson, that even divine cities can fall silent, but their echoes never truly die. No longer did Eridu have a place in the world that followed. Today, many scholars call it the Atlantis of Mesopotamia, a city not only buried beneath the desert sands, but also lost within the shifting consciousness of humankind itself. For perhaps the fall of Eridu was never just the story of an ancient city, but a metaphor for the moment when humanity stopped looking toward the heavens and the gods, in turn, withdrew from the earth forever. The final archaeological layers tell a haunting story of peaceful departure. There is no evidence of violence or destruction, no signs of fire, invasion, or collapse. The people of Eridu appear to have left deliberately, even ceremonially. They sealed their temples, buried their idols, and vanished into history. In the last layer of the Iabzu, excavators uncovered a small, broken statue. Its face worn smooth by time, yet its eyes still turned skyward. Was it a farewell to the gods, or a silent declaration that humankind was ready to walk alone? The death of Eridu was not a catastrophe. It was a ceremony of closure, a calm surrender to destiny, as if the entire city had agreed. Our purpose has been fulfilled. Today, what remains of Eridu are low mounds of baked clay and cracked earth, silent under the southern Iraqi sun. Yet every fragment of brick still carries the breath of that first great age, when humanity learned to build, to organize, and to believe in something beyond itself. Eridu reminds us that every civilization, no matter how magnificent, has both a beginning and an end. Born from water, sustained by faith, and swallowed by silence, it leaves behind a question that transcends millennia. When the gods depart, what will humanity do next? Eridu is more than an archaeological site. It is the memory of humanity's dawn, a mirror reflecting both our genius and our fragility. Even now, as our modern world rises on steel and glass, the same ancient truth echoes through the desert. Whenever humankind forgets the sacred, its cities begin to die from within. Far to the south, at the edge of the world, another enigma sleeps beneath a different kind of silence. On the frozen continent of Antarctica, where wind and ice erase all traces of time, satellites have revealed something extraordinary. Pyramid-shaped structures rising from the white expanse. Beneath thousands of meters of ice, amid endless snowfields, these formations, mountains with 4 perfectly equal sides, stand out like the work of deliberate design. Discovered through images from Landsat and Google Earth, their striking symmetry ignited one of the strangest debates of the 21st century. In the Ellsworth Range and Queen Maud Land, researchers observed peaks with slopes between 37 and 40 degrees, nearly identical to those of the Great Pyramid of Giza. More puzzling still, these shapes appear isolated, surrounded by flat plains rather than connected mountain chains. A geological anomaly, and so the great question arose: how can pyramid-like structures exist in a land buried beneath ice for millions of years? If the glaciers melted tomorrow, what would we find beneath them? Ancient temples, lost technologies, or simply the untouched bones of Earth's own natural past? To seek answers, scientists look back tens of thousands of years, to a time when Antarctica was not locked in ice. Studies of ice cores and sediment samples suggest that the continent once had a mild, temperate climate, rich with forests, rivers, and even marshlands. Researchers from the University of Cambridge found traces of pollen, fossilized wood, and peat beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet, evidence that life once flourished where today there is only frost and shadow. If that is true, then the idea of a vanished civilization may not be so impossible after all. What divides scholars is the age of these mysterious pyramidal peaks. If they were natural, they could be the eroded remnants of ancient mountains shaped by wind and glacial pressure. But if they were artificial, if humans or something else built them, then they would have to be at least 12,000 years old, predating not only Egypt but all known civilizations on Earth. Supporters of this idea often cite the Piri race map of 1513, an Ottoman world chart, compiled from older sources, which seems to depict the coastline of Antarctica without ice, drawn centuries before the continent was officially discovered. How could such knowledge exist unless it had been inherited from an earlier, more advanced civilization, one that mapped the world before the last ice age? According to Charles Hapgood's theory of Earth crust displacement, entire continental plates may have shifted thousands of kilometers around 12,000 years ago, rapidly moving once temperate lands into the polar zone. If true, Antarctica may have been suddenly thrust into freezing darkness, burying whatever existed there beneath miles of ice. Could these geometric peaks be the last visible monuments of that lost world? The frozen tombs of a forgotten age? No one knows for certain. To some, they are merely natural formations, pyramids sculpted by nature's slow, patient hand. To others, they are the final proof that history is older, deeper, and far stranger than we dare imagine. For now, the pyramids of Antarctica remain silent beneath the ice, waiting for the day the world grows warm enough or curious enough to uncover what lies beneath. If this hypothesis holds any truth, then modern Antarctica, now a frozen wasteland, may once have been a green, habitable world, home to humans, or perhaps to another intelligent species entirely. Mainstream geologists maintain that these formations are nothing more than nunataks, mountain peaks that pierce through the ice, naturally shaped into triangular forms by wind and glacial erosion. Yet photographs taken from multiple angles tell a different story. The sides of these structures appear unnaturally smooth and flat, meeting at precise intersections that form sharp edges, something exceedingly rare in natural geomorphology. Even more astonishing, the ratio of their height to base width mirrors that of the Great Pyramid of Giza, following the same golden proportion. Several private research expeditions have attempted to reach these sites to collect rock samples, but all were denied permits under the Antarctic Treaty's environmental preservation laws. Still, whispers persist. Between 2009 and 2016, it is said that NASA and military research teams conducted classified aerial and radar surveys over these very regions. Only fragments of the data have ever been made public, enough to confirm subterranean anomalies beneath the ice, but not enough to explain them. This secrecy has only deepened public suspicion that something extraordinary lies hidden under kilometers of frozen time. If the Antarctic pyramids were indeed man-made, their builders must have possessed knowledge far beyond anything attributed to known prehistoric cultures. The precision of their geometry, their alignment with the cardinal directions, and the apparent correlation between their peaks and Orion's belt all suggest deliberate design rather than geological coincidence. Some theorists propose that these structures once served as astronomical observatories, tracking the stars above an ice-free Antarctic sky. Others imagine them as spiritual or energetic hubs designed to harness and amplify Earth's electromagnetic fields, perhaps for ritual, communication, or even power generation. Traditional archaeology dismisses such notions for lack of artifacts or datable material evidence, yet history repeatedly warns us that myth and fact are often divided by nothing more than time. Troy, once dismissed as legend, was eventually unearthed beneath the soil of modern Turkey. Perhaps Antarctica, too, hides its truth beneath 3 kilometers of ice, waiting for an age when science dares to dig deeper. If an ancient civilization truly existed in Antarctica before the Great Freeze, such a discovery would redefine human history. Geological models suggest that Antarctica became fully glaciated around 33 million years ago, yet ice core samples indicate repeated cycles of warming and refreezing, especially between 100,000 and 12,000 years ago. During those warmer intervals, forests may have covered its coasts, rivers may have flowed through its valleys, and life, perhaps even intelligent life, might have thrived. Then in a single catastrophic shift, the world froze. It would not be the first time an entire land vanished beneath rising seas. The lost world of Doggerland, once linking Britain to mainland Europe, now lies beneath the North Sea, its people and culture erased by sudden flooding. Perhaps the same fate befell the civilization of Antarctica, inspiring the oldest and most enduring myth of all, Atlantis. A mighty empire swallowed by the sea in a single night of disaster. Could it be that Plato's Atlantis was not in the Atlantic Ocean at all, but hidden beneath the Antarctic ice? Officially, major scientific institutions remain cautious. They insist the pyramids are natural geological formations. Yet at the same time, independent expeditions are forbidden, and high-resolution satellite images of the area are mysteriously blurred or restricted. Why such secrecy if there is nothing to hide? Some believe that researchers have already found something they cannot yet explain, or that they choose not to reveal until it fits neatly within accepted scientific frameworks. Whether truth or illusion, it is this silence that makes the mystery irresistible. Today, with ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and 3D seismic mapping, scientists are inching closer to seeing what lies beneath the Antarctic ice. Are these formations merely mountains of stone and snow, or ancient halls entombed in time? Until conclusive evidence emerges, the Antarctic pyramids remain a boundary between science and myth, a frozen frontier where imagination meets the unknown. Perhaps they are simply the work of nature, or perhaps they are monuments of a forgotten epoch, remnants of an age when the Earth's poles were green and civilizations we no longer remember flourished beneath an open sky. Whether natural or crafted by ancient hands, they remind us of one undeniable truth: the Earth never stands still. It shifts, transforms, and buries its secrets under new layers of silence. Someday, when technology finally pierces through those thousands of meters of frozen time, the truth may surface, and with it, we may be forced to rewrite the story of our own origins. No one knows who made them. No one knows why. And perhaps most haunting of all, no one knows how old they truly are. Who do you think carved these stone roads? Were they the work of ancient humans, or the legacy of a civilization lost before history began? Share your thoughts in the comments below. across the sun-bleached landscapes of Malta and its smaller sister island Gozo, the very bedrock bears strange scars, parallel grooves carved deep into the limestone, stretching for kilometers across the hills and valleys. These are known as the cart ruts, but that name hardly captures their mystery. Each pair of furrows runs side by side like the rails of a vanished railway, cutting over ridges, converging at odd angles, and sometimes plunging straight into the Mediterranean Sea, as if continuing toward a world long drowned beneath the waves. The ruts are astonishingly consistent. Most measure 1.1 to 1.4 meters apart, matching the width of a small cart or sledge. In some places, they reach depths of half a meter or more, worn or carved so precisely that they seem deliberate rather than accidental. Many follow clear alignments, connecting with others to form vast intersecting networks. They were not random scratches of labor or erosion. They were designed for what remains one of archaeology's most enduring riddles. When European explorers first documented them in the 19th century, they assumed the ruts were the remnants of ancient cart tracks, grooves cut into the rock by wheels, transporting goods or stone blocks. Yet this explanation quickly collapsed under scrutiny. The grooves are far too deep and irregular. Any wooden-wheeled vehicle would have shattered within meters. In many places, the tracks curve up steep inclines, cross each other at right angles, or end abruptly in cliffs, all impossible routes for practical transport. It became clear that these were not the byproducts of daily labor, but the result of intentional craftsmanship, as though someone had tried to reshape the island itself. The most striking concentration lies at a site aptly nicknamed Clapham Junction, after London's bustling railway intersection. Seen from above, it resembles the fossilized remains of a prehistoric transit grid, a spiderweb of intersecting lines stretching across the rock. Yet follow any of these roads, and you'll find they often descend into the sea. Underwater surveys confirm that the grooves continue beneath the waves, vanishing into the depths of the Mediterranean. That single fact changes everything. It means the ruts were carved before sea levels rose, when much of today's seabed was still dry land, perhaps during or even before the last ice age, over 14,000 years ago. If true, they predate the pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, and even Malta's own megalithic temples like Gantija and Manajdra. They may be the stone fingerprints of a civilization that existed before the dawn of recorded history, world literally drowned when the glaciers melted and the seas rose. Archaeologists have offered countless theories. Some propose that heavy sledges loaded with stone once moved along these paths, cutting grooves into the soft limestone that later hardened with time. Others suggest they served as irrigation or drainage channels used to guide water across ancient fields. Yet neither explanation fits. The depth and irregularity of the ruts, their tendency to fork, merge, and spiral, hint at something deliberate but non-utilitarian. Some appear arranged like ceremonial layouts, radiating outward from central points like solar symbols etched into the earth itself. This has led a few researchers to suggest that the cart ruts were part of a ritual or astronomical landscape, aligned with the solstices or with Malta's megalithic temples, whose orientations correspond to celestial events. Perhaps the ruts marked processional routes, pathways of pilgrimage between sacred sites, or even maps of the heavens carved into the rock. Still, no definitive answer has ever emerged. Every theory illuminates part of the puzzle, but leaves another piece in shadow. Geological studies add yet another twist. The limestone surfaces inside the ruts show signs of weathering far older than the surrounding Bronze Age remains. In some places, compacted sediment layers fill the grooves, indicating that they existed long before humans are believed to have settled Malta. Some geologists suggest a breathtaking possibility that these tracks are prehistoric, even pre-glacial, carved when Malta was not an island but part of a vast land bridge connecting Sicily to North Africa. During that epoch, sea levels were hundreds of meters lower, And the Mediterranean basin looked utterly different, a broad, fertile plain where rivers flowed, and early peoples may have thrived. If such a civilization once existed, the cart ruts could be their last surviving legacy, the stone pathways of a forgotten world, preserved by time and salt, whispering across the ages that humanity's story may reach far deeper than we dare to remember. Now lost beneath the Mediterranean Sea, the mystery of Malta's stone roads only deepens when one realizes that the island is not alone. Similar carved grooves have been discovered in Sardinia, Sicily, Spain, Libya, and Greece, all scattered across regions that would have been connected coastlines during the last ice age. The resemblance is uncanny. The same parallel spacing, the same proportions, the same weathered precision carved into solid rock. Could these tracks have been part of a single prehistoric network, a Mediterranean-wide culture sharing common techniques, tools, or beliefs? Some independent researchers have even called it the cartridge culture, a forgotten civilization of engineers and navigators who predated Egypt, Sumer, and Greece. To them, the grooves across the limestone plains are not random scratches of labor, but the fossilized infrastructure of a vanished world. Mainstream archaeology, however, remains skeptical. Officially, the Maltese cart ruts are still attributed to Bronze Age or Roman-era quarrying and transport systems, marks left by sledges or carts dragging heavy stone. But that explanation collapses under closer inspection. How could Roman tools have carved ruts that plunge beneath the sea or that cut through geological layers formed thousands of years earlier? If these were truly the work of known civilizations, they would not lie buried beneath the sediments of prehistory. Imagine Malta not as an island, but as a high ridge in a vast green plain. Herds of animals graze where waves now roll. Rivers wind through fertile valleys. The Mediterranean is not yet a sea, just a wide inland basin. Across this ancient landscape, a people whose name is lost to time carve lines into the living rock. Were they roads, ritual pathways, or celestial alignments mapped upon the earth? We may never know, but their precision, scale, and intent suggest minds that understood geometry, terrain, and stone at a level that defies our assumptions about prehistory. Then came the end of the Ice Age. The glaciers melted, and the oceans rose more than 100 meters. In a geological instant, entire coastlines vanished. The plains that once connected Europe to Africa sank beneath the encroaching sea. Whatever civilization carved those tracks disappeared beneath the flood, leaving only the peaks we now call Malta and Gozo, the last visible fragments of a world drowned by time. Today, visitors can still walk those ancient grooves, placing their feet in the same lines cut by unknown hands. Archaeologists debate, measure, and theorize, but the ruts remain silent, offering no answers. Are they the work of forgotten engineers, or simply nature's illusions later touched by man? Modern science cannot yet decide. Radiometric dating is nearly impossible. The limestone holds no organic material. Even with satellite imaging, LiDAR, and underwater mapping, the puzzle only grows deeper. The network spans hundreds of kilometers, some ruts ending abruptly at cliffs, others vanishing under the sea as if swallowed mid-sentence by history itself. It is a mystery where geology, archaeology, and myth converge, a whisper from a time before time. Perhaps these prehistoric stone roads are the message of a forgotten age, reminding us that human history stretches far deeper than our textbooks dare to reveal. Every pyramid, every temple, every written record is just one surviving page from an immeasurably larger story. The rest may still sleep beneath the sea, waiting to be read again, and as the sun dips below the horizon, the grooves of Malta catch the last light of day, glimmering like veins of an ancient heart. Still beating beneath the stone, beneath the cold grey waters of the North Sea, another lost world waits in silence, an expanse once known as Doggerland. What is now a seabed of sandbanks and tides was once a vast land bridge connecting Great Britain to mainland Europe. Today it exists only as a faint outline on sonar scans, a scattering of bone tools, mammoth remains, and forgotten memory. Some call it Europe's Atlantis, others the lost heart of the Stone Age. But one question echoes across the deep. Was Doggerland merely a hunting ground, or the cradle of a vanished civilization erased by the sea? What do you believe? Was Doggerland a land of wandering tribes, or a true culture buried beneath the waves? Around 12,000 years ago, as the last ice age drew to a close, the glaciers that blanketed northern Europe began to melt. As the ice withdrew, vast green plains emerged, lush, fertile, alive. Doggerland stretched from what is now the British Isles across the North Sea to the coasts of the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany. It wasn't a narrow land bridge. It was an entire continent-sized landscape, as large as modern Britain. Rivers meandered through forests of birch and pine. Freshwater lakes shimmered with fish. Mammoths, reindeer, and wild horses roamed the meadows. For thousands of years, Doggerland was not just a path between lands. It was a home, a crossroads of migration, culture, and survival. People built their camps there, hunted its herds, fished its rivers, and watched the rising sun over a land that no longer exists, fished, gathered fruits and roots, and likely traded along the ancient rivers that now lie buried beneath the waves. Doggerland was, in every sense, the beating heart of Mesolithic Europe, a vast green expanse where the scattered tribes of the north met, mingled, and shared ideas long before the birth of agriculture. Archaeological finds dredged up from fishing nets paint a vivid portrait of this lost world. Stone tools shaped with extraordinary precision, antler picks crafted by skilled hands, and fragments of wooden and bone huts that once sheltered families beside winding rivers. These artifacts tell of a people who were not primitive wanderers, but attuned stewards of their land who hunted, built, and created with purpose. Even more revealing are the discoveries of ornaments, beads, and colored pigments, clues that these ancient inhabitants possessed not only survival skills, but also a sense of beauty. Ritual and identity. Imagine the rhythm of daily life in Doggerland, hunters tracking herds beneath vast northern skies, families gathering reeds along the water's edge, and elders watching the constellations wheel across the heavens. Perhaps they even built sacred sites aligned with the stars or the turning of the seasons. Far from the stereotype of cavemen, these were sophisticated, adaptable people, survivors who thrived in a landscape both generous and unpredictable. But time and nature turned against them. Around 8,200 years ago, as the post-Ice Age world continued to warm, sea levels began to rise, slowly at first, then with devastating speed. Rivers swelled into estuaries, low plains turned to marshes. Villages that had once stood above the floodwaters became islands, then memories, then came catastrophe. A massive undersea landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, unleashed a tsunami towering tens of meters high. It thundered across the North Sea, obliterating Doggerland's last ridges in a single violent surge. Forests, animals, and people were swept away. When the waters receded, the land was gone. The survivors, if any remained, fled toward the higher grounds of Britain, Denmark, and the European mainland, carrying only stories of the paradise they had lost. For millennia, Doggerland slept beneath the sea, forgotten. Then in modern times, fishermen began to haul up strange relics in their nets, flint spearheads, bone tools, and even human remains scarred by cut marks, proof of butchery, craftsmanship, and community. Alongside them came the bones of mammoths, elk, and aurochs, beasts that once roamed the drowned plains. With seismic surveys and sonar mapping, scientists have since reconstructed Doggerland's topography, a world of rivers, lakes, and gentle hills hidden under the North Sea. It was not a desolate seabed, but a structured, vibrant landscape rich in resources, ideal for human life. Recent advances in sedimentary DNA analysis have confirmed it. Doggerland teemed with life. Genetic traces preserved in layers of seabed mud reveal ancient plants, animals, and even human DNA, fragments of a world erased by water. The inhabitants of Doggerland were genetically linked to early Mesolithic peoples across northern Europe, ancestors of those who would later populate the British Isles. In this light, Doggerland was not a forgotten outpost, but the cradle of early British culture, a place where innovation and migration intertwined in the dawn of human society. And so, the question that haunts archaeologists remains: was Doggerland merely a land of nomadic hunters or the birthplace of an early civilization? By strict definition, civilization requires cities, agriculture, and social hierarchy. Doggerland existed just before that threshold, poised between foraging and farming, survival and settlement. Yet the evidence suggests something far more complex. Grinding stones and plant residues hint at experiments with wild grains, the first steps toward agriculture. Ornaments and pigments reveal symbolic thinking and shared identity. Its vast rivers and coasts would have been natural trade routes, linking the cultures of Scandinavia, Britain, and continental Europe, a crossroads where ideas, tools, and traditions merged. So while Doggerland may not have been a civilization in the modern sense, it was likely the seedbed of one, a vibrant, interconnected world whose people laid the cultural foundations for the societies that followed. When the tides finally rose and claimed it, they did not erase Doggerland completely. Its memory endures in the DNA of its descendants, in the myths of lands lost to the sea, and in the sonar echoes beneath the North Sea, a whisper from a time when Europe's heart still beat beneath the waves. Doggerland may have been more than a land bridge. It might have been the seedbed of civilization itself in northwestern Europe, a proto-society whose disappearance left echoes in humanity's oldest myths. It's no surprise that Doggerland has often been compared to Atlantis, Plato's legendary city that vanished beneath the sea. Though Doggerland predates that tale by thousands of years, the parallels are striking: a prosperous land, an unexpected flood, and a people lost to history. Some scholars suggest that the world's ancient flood legends, stories of divine punishment, drowned kingdoms, and survivors adrift, may trace their roots to this real prehistoric tragedy. For the Mesolithic peoples who saw the rising sea consume their home, the event would have seemed like the end of the world. Their memories of that cataclysm, passed down through generations, may have evolved into myths of lost lands and sunken cities. Today, a coalition of European researchers, known as the North Sea Paleolandscapes Project, continues to map Doggerland's hidden world, tracing its lost rivers, valleys, and coastlines beneath the silt of the North Sea. Using sonar, seismic imaging, and DNA analysis, scientists hope to uncover proof of permanent settlements, burial grounds, or monuments that might confirm Doggerland was not just a hunting ground, but a true society. Each artifact recovered, a flint blade, a carved antler, a wooden tool preserved in sediment, adds another piece to the story, but the sea guards its secrets well. Beneath the waves may still lie hearths, homes, and temples, waiting for the day technology allows us to reach them. Doggerland is more than a vanished landscape. It is a warning written in water. Once a vast plain connecting Britain to Europe, it disappeared under rising seas, reminding us that civilization's foundations are always fragile. Beneath the North Sea may still rest traces of an entire people who lived, dreamed, and built before the ocean claimed their world. Until those secrets surface, Doggerland remains Europe's great enigma, a civilization that may have existed, surviving now only in fragments of bone, silt, and memory for thousands of years. Across the river valleys and highlands of ancient China, villagers would wander the earth after rainstorms, searching for something extraordinary, fragments of pale bone emerging from the soil. These relics, smooth and gleaming, were believed to be the remains of dragons, celestial creatures that once bridged heaven and earth. They called them longu, dragon bones, Ground into powder and mixed with herbs, they were believed to calm the heart, steady the mind, and chase away evil spirits. Apothecaries sold them in jars adorned with dragons, prescribing them for sleeplessness, tremors, and fear. To the people, this was no superstition, but sacred medicine, passed through generations from a mythical past. In the cosmology of ancient China, dragons were not monsters of chaos, but symbols of harmony and renewal. They governed rainfall, guarded rivers, and embodied the balance between heaven and earth. When lightning struck the mountains or floods unearthed fossils, villagers saw the bones of fallen dragons. Immense ribs, curved skulls, and petrified vertebrae defied all natural explanation. What creature, they wondered, could have bones thicker than a man's arm, or skulls as large as tables? These must have been celestial beings, fallen from the heavens during storms of divine wrath. To uncover a dragon's remains was to touch a fragment of the cosmos itself. In times of drought, powdered dragon bone was mixed with water and poured into the soil to summon rain. In illness, it was consumed to absorb the dragon's strength and serenity, but beneath this ancient belief lay an extraordinary truth. In 1899, a Chinese scholar named Wang Yirong, suffering from malaria, sent for traditional medicine. Among the ingredients he received was powdered longu. As he examined the fragments under lamplight, he noticed something remarkable: tiny symbols carved into the surface. They were not cracks of nature, but deliberate markings, resembling primitive writing. Wang realized that what he held were not dragon bones, but artifacts, engraved relics of the distant past. His discovery led scholars to Anyang, in Henan province, where thousands of similar fragments were unearthed. These were the oracle bones of the Shang dynasty, dating to around 1600 BCE, fossilized ox shoulder blades and turtle shells inscribed with early Chinese script, used in divination to communicate with ancestors and gods. The dragon bones that healers had been grinding for centuries turned out to be the oldest written records of Chinese civilization. Even more astonishingly, the myth of dragon bones was rooted in a deeper truth. The fossil beds of northern China are rich with the remains of prehistoric creatures, dinosaurs, mammoths, and giant rhinoceroses. For millennia, farmers had unearthed these immense bones and, not knowing their origin, interpreted them through the lens of legend. Ancient texts from the Han dynasty describe dragon bones found in the mountains of Gansu and Henan, said to belong to divine beasts buried since the world's creation. Modern paleontology confirmed that these were indeed fossils of long-extinct animals. The ancients had not been wrong to see them as sacred. They had merely given mythic language to real remnants of prehistory. Through the ages, longu remained a vital part of traditional Chinese medicine. Texts like the Shenong Bencao Jing praised its sweet, neutral nature, said to calm the spirit and anchor the soul. The fossilized bone was crushed, roasted, and mixed with herbs to treat fear, insomnia, and restlessness, restoring harmony between yin and yang. Modern chemistry shows that dragon bone is composed mainly of calcium phosphate and carbonate, minerals that do strengthen the body, but for those who used it, its true power lay in symbolism. To consume it was to partake in the stillness of a creature that had once touched both heaven and earth. Ironically, it was this very faith in dragon medicine that preserved one of humanity's greatest archaeological treasures. Had apothecaries not collected and traded longu, the oracle bones might never have been discovered. Each fragment, once destined for a medicine bowl, became a priceless record of an ancient world. Questions to the gods, accounts of harvests and wars, fragments of dreams carved into bone. Even now, many inscriptions remain undeciphered, their meanings lost to time. Some may record rituals older than the Shang dynasty itself, hints of forgotten beliefs from a deeper antiquity. The story of the dragon bones is more than a tale of medicine or archaeology. It is a reflection of how humans interpret the unknown. Where modern eyes see sediment and fossilization, ancient hearts saw divine echoes. Both in their own way were right. For if bones carry memory, then these fossils carry the memory of wonder, the bridge between myth and science, faith and discovery. And even today, when villagers in northern China find great curved bones in the earth, they still whisper softly, "The dragon sleeps again." Perhaps that is the truest description of all. Beneath the soil rest not only the remains of ancient creatures, but the dreams of a civilization that once believed the entire world was alive.